Hey everybody, this is Lauren Delisa Coleman, the host of Filmio's Inside series, and I am super excited to bring to you yet another episode. We are still going strong here at the Bentonville Film Festival, and I have with me both the director and star of a film that I'm just like really just a huge like champion of. It's just I can't wait till you're able to tell us so much about it and just how it kind of came to be and how you guys connected. But anyway, welcome Workhorse Queen team, the director Angela Washko, and the star and just fabulousness of the film, Mrs. Kasha Davis.
Hello, I'm Kasha Davis. Welcome to Suburbia.
Workhorse Queen is a documentary film following Ed Popil, and you may be asking, where is Ed Popil right now? Well, Ed Popil is the person behind the persona, Mrs. Kasha Davis. And Ed Popil is someone who is a full-time telemarketing manager based in suburban Rochester, New York, whose life completely changed when he was cast onto the reality TV show RuPaul's Drag Race and ended up being sort of thrust for the first time into a full-time entertainment career in his mid-40s. So the film critically examines how the phenomenon of Drag Race has impacted local drag communities, as well as the challenges performers face in committing to their authentic voice and finding the best platforms for that voice.
I love that. And, it's funny because as I was, mentioning a little bit offline that I am just a massive fan of drag queens, good drag queens, and have been, just kind of a champion of the gay community since back in the early 90s. And before it was like, a cool thing to do or whatever. And it was called, it was called gay pride, not just pride. And it was not for like toddlers and, and with rainbow, flags and all that, which is great. Don't get me wrong. But there was a real, just very cool underground vibe then. And so, it's funny. I personally knew a variety of different styles of drag queens, but you're right. And I never even thought about it until I watched the film, how RuPaul's Drag Race sets up a specific kind of template for, the drag queen. And that's what, if you don't know or have any real access, then that's what you think it is. And to be able to even have diversity and inclusion within diversity and inclusion, I was like, wow, this is something I had never even really, considered. So I think that this is just really intriguing as, just a general topic, but I'm curious about how you guys came together. Did you already know each other and he was just kind of imparting, the trials and tribulations and you were like, great documentary. What happened?
Well, I was, really interested in RuPaul's Drag Race, coming from a background in performance and video art. And I was making a lot of work kind of focused on the impact of media on gender and sexuality. And so RuPaul's Drag Race, has had an incredible impact in bringing drag culture and queer culture to, many homes that would certainly not have been introduced to it before. So, I watched all the seasons and I found myself being, very struck by Mrs. Kasha Davis. And, Mrs. Kasha Davis got kicked off early, which was a mistake in my mind. But, I was really drawn to how specific Mrs. Kasha Davis's persona was. A lot of people who get cast on the show, they're, maybe they see themselves as pop stars or models. But like Mrs. Kasha Davis was very situated in the home. She's a Mrs., the married woman, had this sort of housewife persona. And, my sort of feminist, like spidey senses were like, oh, this is like an homage to women's underappreciated domestic labor, and started projecting all these politics onto the persona. But as I looked closer, I started seeing, all of this stuff that didn't make it into the show that was going on with Mrs. Kasha Davis and Ed Popil, and got excited about, finding the Rochester drag community, that, this prolific scene, learning about Ed's coming out story, how he came out later in life and found drag later in life. and looking at his close working relationship with his husband, and especially landing on his commitment to becoming the queer role model for kids that, Ed never had growing up, and kind of using this reality TV platform to, become that role model for kids. All of this, I was like, Drag Race, that didn't get aired in Drag Race, but I thought it was a story and a perspective that, it was important, and felt like if Ed would let me, I would just throw it out there and see if, some of these things I was interested in.
Out of the blue, like you approached him like cold call or cold email?
Yeah,
like,
I sent an email. I was like, I'm a professor at Carnegie Mellon University, and I mostly make video games and performance art, but I want to make a documentary film about, your life and career before, during, and after Drag Race.
So cool. And what did you think?
Well, and how could I say no? Angela, she's a woman of a few words, and she was just so complimentary. She was so just really sold me on the whole project and the idea. And I was so flattered. And she knows her proper etiquette, especially for this particular drag queen. She visited me, and it was just after my birthday, and she brought cupcakes from New York City. And I was like, wow, how could I say no?
Right.
Sweet. And I love nice gestures. And honestly, I believe that you should say yes to most things, and you should.
Really?
Well, I do. I believe you should meet people. You should listen to people. You should give people an opportunity. You just never know who the next, person is that's going to provide this.
What I think you need to preach that everywhere, because I feel like a lot of times the first intent is no, right? Because if you don't know somebody, or they're not vetted already. And I definitely agree with you.
Well, and it's no, or for a lot of people it's how much am I going to make? And honestly, this particular experience, and I've said this in other interviews, and I'll say it again, has been a bigger dream come true than competing on RuPaul's Drag Race, because Angela saw a glimpse of something she wanted to investigate further. She knows what she's doing. We met, and the relationship began to build. And she kept digging deeper, and she did her homework. And she took what Mr. Davis, Steve, and I have been trying to put for years on YouTube, and she streamlined it and told the story better than we could ever have told the story. And so many moments have been such a dream come true that, first of all, I can't even believe I'm sitting here right now doing an interview about a documentary that's about my life and my community that I love so much. So how great, I'm so grateful for that. That was not the expectation or the thought that I realized would happen upon that first email in those meetings. And it grew, and the relationship grew, and here we are today. So, you're absolutely right. I think people at least need to give each other, especially other artists, a chance and listen to each other and think like, well, wow, it's not so much what's in it for me, what's in it for us? What can we do together?
Right. Now, how long was the process then? Because, as I was speaking to another documentarian earlier today, it's a vast difference between having a script and not, right? And so especially with this, where you're approaching it almost from a clinical point of view at the same time, how did you kind of handle that as a filmmaker, Angela? Because, it's no small feat, right?
Yeah, it took years, about 3 years. And, I think also part of my process was going to Rochester, kind of getting embedded in the community there, and having both an idea of what I thought was important, but also being open to potential things that could come in, or things that could be said that might end up altering the trajectory. For example, Aggie Doon, who's very present in the film, started talking about, her yearly audition process for RuPaul's Drag Race, and how over time, after interviewing her multiple times, just seeing the kind of the negative impact of getting so frequently rejected by that platform was having on her life and her perception of her legacy. That became more and more of something that felt like it couldn't be ignored in a way, and started to develop as another thing that felt like it should be a part of the film as opposed to, something that felt separate. So yeah, it was I spent a lot of time in Rochester. I got to go on tour. We went to LA, we went to Australia and New
Very
York.
cool.
And yeah, so kind of.
Now, Kasha, was there anything that, I mean, obviously it's a documentary about you. Is that challenging? Because I mean, there's certain things that you might ever want to hold back that like you don't, or like that you do because, for the sake of the project, but you maybe don't feel as comfortable with. And how did you kind of, work with Angela to kind of move through all that? Because I'm sure, I mean, it's your personal life, it's your emotions, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, Angela is a professor, and she understood that I didn't necessarily understand the process of the documentary. And some parts of me just kept feeling as though I needed to perform for Angela. And she was very patient with me and would say, okay, tell me that, for instance, tell me another, let's do another take, and just tell me honestly how you're feeling right now. And eventually, as we began to build that relationship, more and more of that happened. I believe that in this day and age with social media, and everyone is so tangible. You can tweet at share, and the person will respond. I think to myself, I have nothing to hide. Mm-hmm. I am an open book. And so whether it's on interviews, often people will ask, are there any things I can or can't? Ask me anything. I mean, if I truly don't want to answer, I won't, but I would like to share as much as possible and be an open book. Why? Because that story line was not present for me when I was a child and an adolescent. And maybe my successes and failures and struggles could help someone navigate their life. And so that sharing and that honesty, I believe, pulls people in, especially because, I worked in, as Angela said, in telemarketing and call center. I used to teach people how to present over a telephone. And they would say, well, why do I have to be in dress code? And why do I have to sit up in my chair? Because we're human beings. We can sense honesty and truth. And the more truthful you are, people can sense that. So I think it's important.
So interesting. So what do you think then was the most challenging part of this film, both from, your perspective, I guess, being in it, and then Angela, you kind of, being the driver of this like amazing like starship? How did you kind of, I guess, navigate through what were those challenges?
The biggest challenge for me was just there was so much footage. There was so much that we captured. There were, tough decisions made about things that couldn't make it into the film. Mrs. Kasha Davis ended up getting to do this hosting and stand-up appearance with Bianca Del Rio, who's cool. A drag queen she very much admires. And we filmed that, but ultimately we couldn't make that kind of work within the narrative of the film. So there is footage from interviews from, backstage, but there isn't actually footage from that event. So things like that, where it's just like, how do you really narrow this down to exactly what's sort of important and essential to tell the story? As someone coming from a fine art background, and working with editors, that was definitely the biggest challenge for me. And also Mrs. Kasha Davis's life is always changing. So deciding when to stop and when to say, okay, this is the last time we're going to Rochester, which I probably said like 5 times before we like finally stopped going to Rochester to film.
Oh my gosh.
I would add
what about you?
I would add the biggest challenge for me, one of the many reasons that I gravitated to drag was that I was able to do drag after work, and it could fit it into my schedule. And I get to choose the persona, the character, the costumes, the staging, the music. And so it could be a shortcoming of mine, but I'm a control freak, and I'm thinking, I was 44 when I was on RuPaul's Drag Race. Well, I just turned 50. And I would say, Angela, what about this? What about that? And should we film this? And And Angela would be like, calm down. I have a plan. There are editors, and she would be so patient with me in explaining the process, because of course, limited exposure to film and of course a documentary, I have no idea. And so to learn to give up the control and to trust is something that I needed to do in many aspects of my life. But the more that I realized, this person I trusted from the beginning, I have a wonderful gut instinct. Let it go, Edward. Let it, and the more, and you do, and that process is really rewarding when you do, because it's life is about teamwork.
So now, is this the first festival that the film has been in, or have there been others? This part I don't know.
We've been in a lot of festivals. We premiered at Slam Dance Film Festival, and this might be somewhere between our 10th or 15th festival. We've been really fortunate to have a kind of amazing run that just keeps on going. So now,
but do you have distribution yet, or are you still working toward that? How's the kind of
unfortunately, I can't divulge too much about where we're at because we're still negotiating.
But you are negotiating.
Yeah, we are in negotiation.
Soon, before the end of this year, we will hear about a platform and a deal. Congrats!
Fingers
How was
crossed.
that for you? Did you handle most of that yourself, or do you have a business partner or agent, sales?
I work with a sales agency called GQ Films. It's the only non-cisgender run sales agency in the world. And Brian Glick is our sales agent, and they have done an amazing job. Also, as somebody not coming from a film industry background, really kind of helping to educate me about what even just what roles you need to really build out the PR and sales and distribution parts of and legal parts of the journey of the film into broader mainstream distribution. So we are in negotiations, and I can't really say much more than that, but
I think that's great. But woo. That says it all.
But woo.
And I guess just to kind of touch on something. Oh, I'm sorry, Kasha. Did you want to add to that?
The only thing I added was woo.
Of course. And I'm already scheming on that disco ball that I think we really need that here for film.io, just so you know. Yes. I'm hoping you can pack that up digitally and send it through. Right. But something you were saying, I just wanted to kind of touch on, especially for those who are listening who, might be in your same position. Like, okay, I hadn't been a filmmaker before. Wasn't that kind of, just rather a lot to chew, right? At one moment. How did you get through that? And what tips might you have? Because I'm assuming you didn't really read through like a billion books and all that. You sound like the kind of person who maybe jumped in thoughtfully, but, kind of just jumped in. How did you kind of approach that?
I mean, I'm really lucky to have the resources of the university where I teach, Carnegie Mellon. So definitely I received a lot of grants and institutional support and resources starting from there. But my advice would really be to sometimes, especially I think if you're woman or part of the queer community or a person of color, the idea of admitting that you need more help. You don't want to, you feel like an imposter. You don't want to like anyone to know that you don't know what you're doing. So it does feel, for me, it felt like uncomfortable or scary to start to reach out to people and say, I have this film and I really think it's really substantial and I want to make sure that it gets distributed at a certain scale, but I'm not even sure how to structure certain parts of post-production. I need to fundraise again, and it's very embarrassing or uncomfortable. I reached out to a lot of people that I knew who were part of the film industry, who gave me great advice, connected me to amazing people, and like-minded editors and colorists and sound studios, and really talked it out with them and figured out, ways to work together, even though I was coming from a less film industry sort of pipeline and coming at this with my art background. And it was essential to really, put myself out there and ask for help and really build a community around the film, which we did in the making of it and the shooting of it. But, in terms of the sort of business infrastructure, I had to like put the punk rock artist like over here and keep that in like the vision and be like, no, I really do need to, be humble about what needs to happen next.
So interesting.
I would love to add, Angela.
Please do.
I just love to add this. We connected because of a work ethic as well. I mean, we're Pennsylvania people, and I don't know, coal miners. I don't know, work ethic. But Angela, just I believe in the listeners to understand that if you visualize something and verbalize, it can materialize. And I compliment Angela. It's very brave. It's very strong to ask for help. And Angela got married and had a baby during this whole process.
No.
It's like, full time, about a film, have a baby, get married. Oh, there's Mrs. COVID. I mean, so,
That's a lot.
Good job.
Thank you.
Oh, well, it sounds like you two are going to be both fast friends and collaborators for, maybe an eternity. So that's always a blessing to find that, right? It seems like a beautiful fit.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So anything else that you guys would like to add before we finish?
I guess I'm looking forward to, I'm going to Bentonville, and this will be my first in-person festival of the run of this film. So hopefully soon, Mrs. Kasha Davis and I will get to be at an in-person festival safely together at a red carpet so that, Mrs. Kasha Davis can have her red carpet moment.
Yes.
I have a couple ideas. I've always wanted to have a designer make a gown out of red carpet, but they said it's not going to be very comfortable, Kasha. And I was like, I know, it doesn't matter. It's just funny. She's wearing she's on the red carpet.
You know what? That's just like true creative drag queen. Like, you can't make that up. Come on.
Yeah.
The only thing that's probably close to that is, do you remember the Oscars 1 year back, where there was a costume designer? She actually won. And she had a dress made out of gold American Express cards.
Yeah.
Remember that at all? Wasn't that fabulous?
Fabulous.
So that will be like the next one. Your red carpet dress. I will be watching that, ready for it, like on E, when E is interviewing you. I'll be watching and be like, she told us here first at film.io, people. Okay.
That's right.
So I guess that is it. I'm going to let you guys get back to the rest of the festival, but I want to thank you both so much for sharing. And it was a lot of fun speaking to both of you, for sure, and really continued success. And to all of our viewers, thank you for watching yet another episode. We will be bringing you more nowhere else but here at film.io. I'm Lauren DeLisa Coleman.